Thanks for listening to Eat Your Content. If you like what you hear, please consider supporting the podcast through my merch store on TeePublic. Get great quality items like t-shirts, hats, mugs, and more, all sporting the vibrant Eat Your Content logo. Go to teepublic.com/user/eatyourcontent for more great items, and thanks for your support. Welcome to the Eat Your Content podcast, your home for all things food and pop culture. I'm your host, Rich Herrera. Thanks for tuning in. Just a quick reminder to follow me on socials, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, at Rich Herrera and at Eat Your Content. A couple of programming reminders. We are taking a bit of a break from recapping The Bear Season 3 this week. So recaps will start again next week. So you want to make sure you are following and subscribing on your podcast player of choice to make sure you are up to date and you'll be notified of any new episodes that drop. But on today's show, I have a special guest. My guest today is James Beard semifinalist for Emerging Chef in 2022. He's from Monterrey, Mexico. Currently calls Denver, Colorado home and is the culinary director of Camp Pickle and Jaguar Barella. Highly anticipated entertainment concepts that will be featuring his wood-fired dishes inspired by Mexican and Southern cuisines. Jaguar Barella opened in May 24 in Raleigh, with Atlanta next on the docket, followed by Camp Pickle in Denver and Tulsa in 2025. But you know him probably best from his recent appearance as a top 5 finisher and one half of the Power Bottoms on Top Chef Season 21. Welcome to the podcast, Chef Manny Barella. Glad to have you on the pod today.
Man, thank you so much for the invite. This is really exciting. It's really fun. I've listened to the other ones, and I want to say it. I'm really happy that you invited me.
Oh, that's great to hear. I am humbled that you listened to my little podcast. I had Chef Sue and Chef Savannah on, and it was a great time. I love having you guys on the pod. I love the show, and having you guys on is a huge privilege and an honor for me. So thank you for the time. So first, congratulations are in order, newlywed. How's married life so far? I'm sure the 5K came in really handy. That quick fire cash. How's married life?
Yes.
How's that treating you?
It's incredible. You know, even after you already live with your partner, there's something that just clicks. It's different. You know, when you refer to her as wife instead of fiance, or
right,
it has more weight.
Yeah, it matters just a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, congratulations. I'm sure it was a beautiful wedding, and I'm sure everyone had a great time. So it's been a few weeks now since Top Chef Season 21 finale aired. How much has life changed for you, other than the wedding, obviously, but how much has life changed for you from like a professional standpoint, from a personal standpoint, since appearing on Top Chef and making the run that you did?
You know, it's incredible the way that we are taught to think about when it comes to success and delivering and expectations more than anything. You know, if I had not been in the season participating in Top Chef, we open Jaguar and it would be like, okay, let's go check this place out. But because of things like Top Chef, the expectations are considerably higher. So you have to deliver even more than you would have if you would have not been put on that spotlight, because you're like, oh, from Top Chef, so there's a certain level of excellence that is expected no matter what. And that's going to follow me for the rest of my career.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I was looking up Jaguar Barella and Camp Pickle because I'm not from the Carolinas area, so I was kind of checking it out, and it looks like fun, like, you know, entertainment space and a restaurant and a bowling alley and all things, which is fun to go to. But now that your name is attached to it, it really becomes like this destination spot, right? And people come as like, oh, I want to eat Chef Manny's food. I saw him on Top Chef. I want to see what he does away from the competition. So you're right. Yeah, I think the expectations go up a little bit higher. And it does make for kind of a splashier opening. So, so it's good to see that those things have picked up for you, and hopefully business does well for you while when it opens and all the other spots open up after that. So good.
Yeah, I am busy.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Business is good.
Yeah, between that and all the Top Chef reunion cooking I'm seeing that you guys are doing, I'm sure you are running out of time to sleep apparently. So,
Yeah,
um,
and like even so, like living in Denver and having a location in Raleigh,
yeah.
uh, yeah, that's a whole new level of expertise that I am navigating and learning. And that's my learning curve right now on something that I had to do before. But thankfully, I'm surrounded by an incredible team that makes it easier than it could have been.
Yeah, I mean, being remote 2 time zones away has got to be tough. I mean, you really got to put your trust in the team that you got there because you're not there to really do quality control 100% of the time. So,
Yes.
yeah, that's got to be tough. So let's talk a little bit about your background before Top Chef. I read that you were in law school before you became a chef. So that's an interesting shift. So, what was the catalyst that made you realize, you know what, I really don't want to be standing and talking about case law and precedent. I'd rather be in a kitchen cooking. So, what was that catalyst that made that change for you?
I did want to be in front of a judge and talking about it. Like I think that's a fun part of being a lawyer. Like there's few things that are as satisfying as telling somebody that they're wrong and you're right with facts. That's what I used to say. However, most of the people that need lawyers in criminal justice are people that are they don't align with my moral compass. So I just wanted my life to be more about being part of somebody's good day. If I can be the thing that you're talking about at the end of your day with your spouse or with your friends, or like, hey, I tried this food, this is the experience that I had, and I am part of that. I mean, there's a beautiful way of seeing my career.
Yeah, I mean, being a lawyer's got to, especially if you're on the criminal defense side, that's got to be tough, right? So, I can see trying to, being part of somebody's good day. That's a really great way to say that because you're going to restaurants to celebrate something, right? A birthday, an anniversary, and a night out. So it's good to be part of somebody's good day as opposed to being somebody's part of their bad day, if the case
Yeah,
doesn't quite work out for you.
yeah, and that's something that I even tell my cooks in multiple restaurants that I've had, and even before I was the person in charge. Like our jobs as chefs are quite easy if you look at them through the lens that you just mentioned. Nobody goes to a restaurant upset because they're about to get served. You just gotta
Right.
capitalize on the happiness and the good mood that people are walking into your place with. You're not troubleshooting unless you are creating those problems. So half of my job is already done.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So that's a neat train of thought to think about when you're making that switch. So moving forward, you're known for elevated Mexican cuisine, and you're also the president of the Hispanic Chefs Association. Most Americans' exposure to Mexican food, for better or for worse, is basically Taco Tuesday, right? In that the expectation of certain cuisines, particularly like Mexican and Chinese food, is known to be huge portions at cheap prices. So how important is it for you as a classically trained chef to see Mexican cuisine elevated past its Americanized image and at the same level as classic French cuisine and things like that?
It's I consider it important first and foremost because when I left Mexico, I wanted to be an ambassador for Mexican food. It took me a couple of years to be focused on cooking Mexican food, but because of my travels and the visas that I had, I didn't really have a lot of options on where I was working. So when I had the opportunity to open a restaurant and it was a Mexican restaurant, my thought was I want to bring Mexico to the people that haven't gone to Mexico. I've always said there's a place for Tex-Mex, and I'm not a particular fan of it, but I would eat it. But I just didn't want to be another Mexican chef associated with crunchy tacos with shredded cheddar cheese.
Right.
My wife, she loves them. But for me, like I miss Mexico, I miss the food, so I'm just gonna recreate it and show it to people because it's the love language at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. When you're talking about food, that is the ultimate expression of love is cooking for somebody and serving them food and also being able to show them a new side of a culture that they may think they know, but they don't. Right. I say this a lot about Asian food is if you serve somebody genuine, real like Chinese food, they wouldn't recognize it. They wouldn't know what it is. They'd probably be scared by it. And I'm sure some of that can be said of classical Mexican cuisine too. So
Yeah, like
um
well, when I put crickets in my menu, the first time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was like a little bit of like I had to sell it.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. So let's get right into your time on Top Chef. So we're not going to hit every single episode, as that would take forever. But I want to hit some of the highlights and talk about some of the things that happen, kind of decision making processes behind that, etc. So, episode one, the 15 chefs get broken up into three groups. You're in the soup group, and you made a green pozole with chicken and charred salsa verde. You mentioned in a confessional interview that you had some imposter syndrome going on. Tell me a little bit about that. When you saw these other chefs of acclaim were making these dishes and plating them the way they were, walk me through what was going through your head in terms of the imposter syndrome that you said you felt.
It's going back a little bit to doing the career change. Like I didn't start cooking until I was 24 years old. When you hear about a lot of chefs that I grew up cooking with my grandmother, I started working in a restaurant when I was 15. So in my head, I've always been playing from behind. I always have to play this catch-up game because by the time I was 29 years old and I was a chef de partie, like the sous chefs were 23, 24 years old, graduated from CIA. So there's this concept of they have more experience than me, and that's something that I learned a while back with one of my sous chefs that he asked me, "You think I'm better than you?" And I was like, "I don't think you're better than me. You just have more experience." So when I see these chefs and Top Chef, and I'm just like, I don't know how much experience they have. I know how much I have, but is this gonna be enough? Am I gonna have a good day or a bad day in the worst possible way? Like you start like just getting in your head just because of where the stakes are, and the level of cuisine that these guys are gonna bring. So you have to come in with your A game. And I mean, a while back, I decided to embrace that imposter syndrome. It can just freeze you completely, or it can be that fuel that will make you work a little extra harder because
Yeah.
you have that something, that chip on your shoulder, like, I don't know if I'm going to be good enough, so I'm going to work extra hard.
Yeah. And to put that imposter syndrome right on the shelf, you won that first challenge, that first elimination challenge with the soup that you made, and how important was it to get that first win on the first challenge, kind of under your belt and out of the way?
When I came back to the hotel, I had one of those like mirror moments, and I'm just like looking at myself, and I'm like, maybe I have what it takes to like go head to head with these people. Like I don't know if I can take it all because I don't really know them that much. I know myself, and I'm certainly gonna try. But at the end of the day, I have enough to sit at the table with them.
Yeah. So you kind of had that moment there where he kind of looked and said, "I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me." Kind of like that old SNL skit, right? And
Yes.
you're like, I am here for a reason, right? So that's great. So yeah, you had that first one under your belt, and right into episode two, you had another win. So you kind of came out of the gates swinging, like you came out flying high. A big favorite among us. Like I did a episodic recap of the entire season of Top Chef, and we did a draft. And after these first two episodes, we're like, oh man, I think Chef Manny's in this to win this. So let's get right into episode two for a minute. Have you cooked with hops since that episode? Because a lot of people had a
No.
hard time with it. And like, have you ever? I mean, we all drink beer, I'm sure, but have you ever had to cook with hops before?
I don't think that I had ever seen hops like held hops in my life.
Right. Yeah,
I
we
wouldn't
had
even know where to find them if I want to.
we all see the end result in the bottle, as we drink,
Yeah.
but never as the raw ingredient. I was like, oh my gosh, it's going to be crazy to cook with hops. Extremely bitter. Trying to get past that. But you had
Yeah.
another standout win in the elimination challenge. You weren't an individual winner, but you were on the winning team with Rosica, Michelle, Dan, Alicia, Kenny, and Savannah. Of all the snack ingredients that were assigned to you, how lucky were you?
Yeah, like the moment I saw the snacks and I saw the peanuts, and you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna get to make mole in Top Chef. That was my first thought. Or like,
Yeah.
I need to get my hands on the peanuts because I want to make mole. Regardless of if this would be the last episode that I'm cooking at, like, and especially coming from the first episode, I had like, I got this, like I can do whatever. So like I'm gonna make mole in 3 hours. Never done it before. So let's see how this goes.
Yeah, never in the history of moles has one been made in as little time as Top Chef gives you, right? Uh, so you had to feel incredibly lucky that, oh, nuts are there, so I can do something with this, as opposed to what was the rest of them? Potato chips, pretzels, all those other kind of weird snacks. But you got the peanuts and you were able to make mole. So yeah,
Yeah.
so you got another win under your belt in episode 2, again riding high. So with the third episode, Take It Cheesy. Why were there so many croquettes? Like, what was the deal? Did like one person started making croquettes, and then it kind of had this domino effect with everybody else?
No, so there's something that doesn't get talked about. Like when we know what the elimination challenge is going to be, like we just go into our little world of this is what I can do. We're not comparing notes until we are at the store and they tell us something that I'll give to Top Chef. They don't tell us what to say. They just make us talk. So when we're at the store, they're like, "Hey, ask this person what are they doing." So I go, "What are you doing?" "Oh, I'm doing croquettes." "Oh, what about you?" "And you?" "And you?" And now we're like, "Oh shit, we're all making croquettes." We did not know. It's not like we all decided to do it as a team. No, no, no. By the time we realized that we were all making croquettes, we were like halfway through our shop. It's like, I'm not changing my plan. I'm just gonna go with it.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, like, if you realize halfway through Whole Foods that it's a croquette off, essentially, for this challenge, is it too late to pivot? Like, what are we not seeing as viewers? When you have all the things in your basket and you find out 18 people are doing croquettes, was it too late in your mind to shift?
Yeah, like at that point, you're like, what am I gonna do? Just sit here and have the camera stare at me, and they're gonna start asking me, "So what are you thinking about it?" I'm like, I just need to think. That's all I need. So I'm just gonna go with my plan and make sure that I'm doing the best I can, and hopefully it'll be the best croquette at this point, right? And in my head, it's like, all right, guys. From all the people that are making croquettes, I'm making a plain poutine. I think that I could have like a little bit more of like a say on making a potato croquette,
Yeah.
but like that's how it goes. We don't compare notes, and in this particular one, some people have asked me like, why didn't you guys change your strategy? Like there was no time by the time we realized that.
I mean, yeah, it's really easy for us as content creators, as fans to watch and go, why doesn't anybody just change their mind? And you don't realize what's going on there. As I'm sitting on my couch with a bag of Skittles in my hand, going, I can't believe you're making croquettes. What are you doing? But so to hear it from the perspective of you guys, you're like, look, my mind's going 100 miles an hour in Whole Foods. I got the ingredients for a croquette, and once that tunnel vision sinks in, it's really hard to get out. So
Yeah.
it's always good to hear that. It humbles me as a person that watches the show that thinks, oh man, how hard can it be? Just change it to something else. That's all I got to do. But it's really really difficult. So speaking of that difficulty though, from basically kind of this episode forward, um, unfortunately, you're most known for kind of hanging out towards the bottom of the pack, right? So
Yeah.
you were basically cooking from the defensive for the rest of the season. What's that mental game like when you hear your name on the bottom that many times? How do you work through that as a professional chef, knowing that I do this for a living? Like, what's wrong? It's almost like a bad case of the yips for the rest of the challenge. How do you work past that in your mind mentally?
it is quite challenging, because in Top Chef, and I'm sure that you've heard this one before, the cooking is not like the physical aspect of it is not the hardest thing, it's the mental.
Right.
It's like the way that I describe it to people. You're doing R&D, but you only have one shot, and then you put your soul into one dish, and you go to Tom and be like, "Can you eviscerate it? Can you roast me?" So like
Right.
that eventually like starts like piling up, and you don't go to a challenge like thinking about what you have done in the past. Like you really have to make that decision. And we had this phrase while we were there that yesterday's price is not today's price, and we always said that before every challenge. So when on the second one they will be like, "So how do you feel about immunity?" And I was like, "I don't care about immunity. Like there's another one on the table. You have to look forward. And obviously, like in hindsight, I can go to every challenge and tell you what I would have done different. Like that. That is quite easy once you are outside of the shed to look. Oh man, I could have done this. I could have done that. But at the end of the day, on every challenge, you just go head first and you try to do the best you can, and then there are little things here and there that will completely derail your plan. And sometimes you realize them on time. Sometimes you realize them when you have nowhere else to go, but just, well, now I'm going to make 70% of what I wanted to do because the other 30% is out the window now.
Yeah, yeah. And in talking to other chefs that have been on this show, it's like your brain can't shut off. So even though the cooking, the physical aspect is only, a couple of hours or so, the mental game almost keeps you fatigued most of the time because your brain, like you were saying, you only have R&D for a few hours and the overnight, and your brain just keeps going and going and going and going and going. Is this right? And you kind of continue tweaking the dish in your head, and it's like you just can't stop. You just can't stop thinking about that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So when you got to the next episode, which is the right way, the Frank Lloyd Wright challenge, this was the birth of the Power Bottoms, the birth of you and Kevin finding this bromance, in a world where competition's kind of taking over, and you look at everybody as like, oh, you're my competition. You and Kevin shared not only a connection of never skipping arm day, but also but of also kind of hanging out there at the bottom. How important was it though to have that support within the competition itself, both on a professional and personal level? And how has that manifested itself today?
He's somebody that has had experience and Top Chef. He's somebody that I admire a lot as a chef and as a professional. And I consider myself lucky that we ended up having the same dark humor, and both being immigrants, we have had similar struggles. We have had to deal with things that most Americans don't even have to think about. So I think that there is that common language that just brought us together on top of many other things. But that was just a great friendship that I built with him there. And even when I was like, if I was in my head a little bit, if he was in his head a little bit, like we will always talk. Like we became friends. We all became friends immediately. But with Kevin and I, as we were walking the first day to the set, before we even talked to each other, I happened to be walking by him, and I just look at him, and he looks at me. He just goes, and we just like pounded. Like that was the first interaction that I had with anybody. And I was like, huh,
Oh wow.
he looks like an asshole, but he's really cool. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
what if that's something you ever told him? Was like, man, you kind of look like a jerk, but it worked out.
No, but if I haven't, I will tell him to his face. He's gonna be like, thanks, bro. Like he and I were very, very good friends.
Because being on a show like Top Chef, you're away from family for 10, 12 weeks at a time or whatever. Having those personal relationships and finding friends within that group that you're with has got to be encouraging. Because I don't know how much of Top Chef you watched before going on the season, but those early seasons of Top Chef were very much like the tropes of the reality show. But around season 10 or so, it kind of shifted, and it became much more about the cook and the food and the personal lives, and it showed a lot more camaraderie, which is the version of Top Chef that I like to see the most. So kind of how much of Top Chef have you watched before coming on the show, and did you feel like the newer version of Top Chef is a much better environment than those previous episodes?
Yeah, so I had watched a couple seasons, a couple episodes, not even seasons, to be honest. And then when the whole process started, I was like, you know what? Let me start like binge watching it just in case something happens. And I watched like 5 seasons in a row. and
Wow.
and yeah, and I did notice that. But if you think about it, it's very reflective to the new culture in kitchens,
Yeah.
where the whole being a bully in the kitchen doesn't fly anymore. Oh, I work 16 hours, 7 days a week, and before that it would be like you're such a badass, and now are you that bad at training? Like it has
Yeah.
changed so much that the way that the camaraderie got reflected, if anything, is just a reflection of where the culture in kitchens is going towards, if not already there.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think I remember reading an interview from Tom Colicchio saying the same thing is, the shift in Top Chef is just reflective of life, is reflective of the cultures. Like long gone. It's no longer cool to be the bully chef in the kitchen and yell at people and feel like that's the way to run a kitchen now. We've grown past that, and Top Chef has to grow with it. So I'm really glad to see that that's the case now, and seeing these personal relationships like you and Kevin developing, Rosca and Danny being running partners, and things like that is really great to see. So talking about chaos cuisine, the next episode on episode 6, everyone seemed to have a hard time figuring out what that challenge was all about, even the judges. Walk me through in your mind when you heard Maddie Matheson trying to explain this challenge. What was it confusing to you, or were you going in there with a plan and knew exactly what he meant, or did you guys back in the hotel kind of get together and go, "What the hell is this challenge about?"
He was explaining or trying to explain chaos. The way that I understood it, or cooking is a metaphor for chaos. We create chaos and then we control it. We burn and we bring it back to where we want it. Like that is just creating and controlling chaos. So that's how I understood it. In my dish, particularly, when Tom goes like, Manny, you burned the tortillas. And I was like, no, that is on purpose. It's usually in the kitchen when you burn something, it's chaotic, but I'm purposely creating this chaos to integrate it to my dish. So that was my approach. That's how I understood my version of chaos. When you burn something, it's chaotic for the most part.
Yeah, it was interesting to watch the chaos cuisine and the tabletop challenge and some of these other ones where it was basically just giving you guys free reign to do whatever you wanted. One thing that I saw in this season is almost the more freedom you were given, the more confusing the end results ended up being versus the more restrictions that you were given, the better the dishes came out to be. And I found that really odd. And I'm wondering, like, as chefs, kind of like exactly what you're saying is chaos in the kitchen is almost the opposite of what you're trying to do. You're trying to bring order to chaos. You're bringing in all these raw ingredients and you're trying to make this composed dish at the end. And when you're told to flip it on its head and do the opposite, it becomes a little bit more difficult. Did you find that to be the case?
It went both ways, to be honest. In my case, so because there were some other challenges that we had like such little room for creativity that I'm just like, I wanna reach there, but I can't because I'm not allowed to. So I guess it just depends on your first initial thoughts of what you're gonna do. But yes, I have been in the position where like I have zero guidance, so I don't know if doing this is gonna be way too out there, where they're gonna be like, oh, you took it too far. Like give me the limits so I can like work in that space.
Yeah. So the fish boil episode seemed to be a common eyebrow raiser for a lot of the chefs on the show this season. I think Dan said it best, and I was thinking he said it. What was everybody's mind was, "I'm boiling a fish. You're telling me to do something that is against every fiber of my being as a chef." How tough was that challenge for you and trying to figure out how am I going to make a boiled fish taste good?
It is, the amount like something that you have never done. You're thinking how much seasoning is too much. Like not like regardless of the boiling, like I'm gonna cook it just for 8 minutes. Like how much salt do I need to put? How much other flavors do I need to impart? Like boiling fish, what the hell?
Yeah.
We came to as we were talking with Tom, and we were talking about whitefish, and this was an incredible learning moment where we were some of the fish didn't most of the fish didn't impact that have that impact on the flavor. Like none of us, we were like, we're not used to do this. Like what the hell? However, the point of boiling it, and when they throw the kerosene on it, the fish has this layer of fat that because it's boiling, and when you throw it, there was that explanation that Tom we were trying to um, learn like what is the purpose of it. Like the boiling releases the fat, allows it to removes that layer to get more flavors in the fish. So there is a method to the madness at the end of the day. It's not just something that, well, we've been doing this for 200 years, so we just keep doing it. No, there's an actual reason for that, but it was so out of our expertise that they were like, I'm just gonna go with it. Just tell me what to do, and I'm just gonna give it a shot. And like a little one of these.
Yeah, it was like it was telling a bunch of like pro chefs, "Hey, we're just do a potluck. Let's just just do a potluck and like a backyard church potluck." And it was kind of weird to see because these were some of the fish boil episode for me was kind of almost like the least creative dishes I've ever seen on Top Chef. I mean, no offense to you or any of the chefs, but that really kind of put you guys in a corner of how do I elevate this? How do I make this kind of like family gathering type of thing elevated. So it was fun to watch on TV with the fireball and everything, but I felt for you guys. I was like, that's got, and I'm not a chef of any stretch of the imagination, but I was like, man, that's got to be tough to kind of put yourself in that area. But that's what Top Chef is about, right? Getting you out of your comfort zone, having you guys do something you've never done before. So, yeah,
Yes.
good job with that as much as it could be done. So I want to skip ahead to your final episode, which was episode 12, Goodbye Wisconsin. It was kind of a good and a bad for you. That quick fire challenge, the blind taste test, is a fan favorite of everybody's. I love watching that because it's so fun to watch you guys get blindfolded and try to identify stuff. But you killed it. I think you set a record. It was 23 of 26. I don't think any chef has ever gotten that many in the history of Top Chef. And you equated that to the aggressive tongue scraping that we saw at the beginning of that episode of being able to identify that many ingredients. So is that the tip for budding chefs and people to scrape the tongue every morning or every before you service, scrape the tongue out?
I don't know, man. Many years ago, I used to smoke cigarettes, and when I started working in fine dining, my chef told me, you should not smoke cigarettes because it's going to affect your palate. Like you need to keep you need to keep your tongue like clean, and you have to like treat like that's one of your most important tools in the kitchen. Right. So from there, it just something just clicked. So the funny thing is that the chefs there used to like low key give me shit of my tongue scraping habits, and then after that, I was like, "Ha, suckers, here you go."
Because I mean, I was watching the episode. I'm like, why are we watching Manny scrape his tongue? It's a little weird.
It was like 3 seconds too long. Also,
yeah,
on the clip.
It was almost creepy. I was like, what are we doing? But then but it mattered. It mattered at the end, which was really funny. Did you know? Have you ever measured your palate that way? Like, I mean, chefs know that they have a good palate. You have to do the job. But did you know it was that good before doing this challenge? Like, were you shocked yourself and go, "Oh my God, that's crazy"?
So when we had to do that, I was like, "Oh my God, like this can be really good or really bad." I can remember thinking that, but after we were done and we were like waiting for the other chefs, I remember telling Savannah, I woke, like, "Wow, that was really easy." I remember telling her that. Yeah, so when I was younger, my mom and I had this little game of when she picked me up from grade school. I will open the door in the house and I will smell, and I will tell her, "You cook this for lunch." So we had like did that little game. It's not doesn't translate to the palate, but just like the identifying ingredients without the traditional senses. I don't know if that is something to do with it, or being exposed to multiple cuisines in my career allows me to go from things like umeboshi to mustard seeds to like just at some point in my life having been able to taste them. I, I don't know, man. It just clicked. It just worked, and I'm happy that it did. And the interesting part is when they told me, "Manny, you got 23 out of 26." My first thought was, "Damn it, I got 3 wrong." That was my first thought. Like, "Oh fuck, I got 3 wrong."
Always the competitor.
Yeah, like, and then like sometimes this figure of speech that I learned recently. Sometimes you gotta stop to smell the flowers.
Yeah.
And And when we are with this hunger of trying to become better chefs or doctors, engineers, whatever your path is, we're just looking for the next mountain peak instead of taking a minute. That was when that happened. I was like, why did I go for the three wrong instead of celebrating the 23 right? Like it just like shocked me.
Yeah, I mean, 23 out of 26. I was like, dang. And to hear you talk about, it, I was like, it was a natural ability that I developed over time. And yeah, so sometimes you have to just kind of stop and appreciate the moment that you're in, and have fun along the ride, and where it takes you, right? So you kind of go from that high, and unfortunately, this was your last episode of the season. This is where you were eliminated. You made your dish, snapper a la, and I'm going to screw this up. I apologize. Vera Cruzana. Am I
Oh,
close?
good night. Yeah. Are you Mexican?
Absolutely not. No,
That was great.
I'm Filipino. Filipino, Spanish last name. I'm a horrible Filipino because I cannot even speak my own language. But no, I get mistaken for Mexican a lot, and I have to say no habla español and embarrass myself. But no, so I did get that right. I did pronounce that right.
Yeah, you pronounced it perfectly.
Oh, cool. Nice. And it was a dish that you said that you always wanted to cook on the show. You had to put it on the back burner earlier in the season, but you had your chance to cook it here and you cooked it. But the judges didn't feel like it told the story of your time on Top Chef. Did you feel like that was a dish you were trying to mold into the story, or were the judges just wrong?
Um, I don't want to say that they were wrong because at the end of the day, I mean, what their criteria is what matters. The thought process behind that was talk about your story. This is your opportunity. I don't remember if this got shown or not, so I apologize. But like we were told, this is your opportunity to do something that may have not worked in one of the other challenges. Like it can be a redemption dish. So for the fish boil, I thought about making the veracruzana, but because a misunderstanding of how much people we're going to have, how many people we're going to have, I was like, oh no, that I don't think that I'm going to have enough time to do it. So for me, it was my redemption of like, okay, this is how I, this is when I'm going to follow my instincts and I'm going to do what I think that I can do, even if I have to push it and make it happen. So that was and more than the growth. I went for the redemption path.
Hindsight being 2020 that we talked about earlier, would you have done something different for that challenge to maybe think about, you got eliminated because of, serving the raw fish and all that. Would you have made a different dish, or would you have maybe told a different story to try to tie it better with what the challenge was about? What would you have done differently to maybe avoided elimination?
You know, I was in between that or making pasta. You know,
Okay.
when I was talking to Kristen about the pasta that I made that was a little bit too thick, I was telling her like the pasta machine, like there was only so much thickness that it was giving me. And then she goes, why didn't you grab a bottle of wine and make it flatter? And I was like, oh. Like, see, that's why you're running the show. Uh, but like I wanted to go for the redemption, you know, like the thinking on your feet. What do you do? What are you doing when the plan doesn't go the way that you're thinking? So yeah, so I was in between that or making the pasta. If I had to do it again, I would probably go and like, okay, I'm gonna make my pasta.
Yeah, yeah. Try to do a different dish altogether. Maybe a pasta dish over the fish dish. Yeah, hindsight's 2020, as we say, and full of
100%.
woulda, shoulda, couldas, right?
Yeah, and like I said, like the first step for you to become better is to acknowledge where did you fail.
Right, right. So speaking of those things, you went through a gauntlet of Top Chef, highs, lows, and having to cook on the defensive and going through that mental game. What were some of the biggest lessons you took away from Top Chef that you have applied or will apply to your role now as a culinary director? You're kind of back in the real world now. So what lessons from Top Chef have you learned that you can take with you on an everyday basis?
Well, there are two that I keep close to my heart. One of them is don't be afraid of trying weird things, quote unquote. You know, like something that is completely out of your wheelhouse just because it's out of your wheelhouse. Just give it a shot, man. If it doesn't work, just make it better next time, fail better, and the other one is what you said earlier, the tunnel vision. Sometimes we're like, oh, this is what I want to do, and then that's it. That you don't even explore other options that could be better, easier, more creative. So this little game of like, like here in the culture that we have, oh, let's make a dish with brisket, and then you go, oh yeah, we can do brisket tacos. So I'm like, okay, the question that I ask myself now, what if fill in the blank dish is not allowed? What would
Yeah.
I do instead?
Yeah.
So that has helped me to create dishes that I was like, oh, I've never seen this before. Me neither. I just put it together, because I couldn't do what I would have done, what is more common or more normal, and I would have never had that thought process if it would have not been for Top Chef.
So Top Chef really helped you kind of think outside the box a lot because one thing I read with Tom, he was saying, Tom Colicchio said, or I think he even said it on the show, is Top Chef uh, forces dishes out of chefs that they would normally never think of without the pressures and the restrictions of what Top Chef does. And hearing you say, you can apply that creativity to your everyday now is exciting because especially when you're opening up a new concept like Jaguar Bolera Camp Pickle, you can take those out of the box concepts and apply them to to the dishes that you're going to be creating for those two things and blow people's minds. And that might not have happened without having the experience on Top Chef.
Yeah, and also, a couple of weeks ago, well, like 2 months ago, we had this event here in Raleigh, and I create the entire process of how we're going to play this event for 700 people. And when we get there, the power outlets were not working, and my entire dish was
Oh
based
no.
on circulator and steam wells and things like that. And we made it happen like 5 minutes before people started walking into the venue. And they were like, "Is this the most stressful you have been for an event?" And I was like, "No, it's not. Like you just gotta like raise the bar." Like the cheese challenge. It was a cheese challenge. That's most stressed I have been on this event. Like it kind of like gets you like another layer of thickness on your skin. Or like I have been
Yeah.
way more stressed.
Yeah. Oh, this is nothing. Let me tell you this. Right.
Yeah, I cannot get eliminated on this one.
Yeah, exactly. So what's the future hold for you? What are some upcoming projects that you want people to know about in the next, couple weeks, couple months? Obviously the opening of future locations of Jaguar Blair and Camp Pickle, but outside of that, what else should people be looking for when keeping up with you?
So I'm leaving next week, going to Dandan. So Dan Jacobs and I are gonna do a collab dinner at his restaurant in Wisconsin. Then after that, I will also be doing one with Sue. I'm going to Adelina to make a dinner with him.
Cool.
So, yeah, so in Denver, with the Top Chef alumni, we're getting together to help it's called the Pro Star competition. Like Pro Star is like a high school kids that are exploring if they want to go and cook for a living. So each one Carrie Baird, Brother Locke, Byron Gomez, and Jose Rosenberg. So we're gonna coach them and serve food and everything. So that Top Chef community is really, really, really tight. So I'm just like enjoying the ride right now with my new brothers and sisters, and just like get to explore life after Top Chef together, and the good, the bad, and the ugly, and everything. At the same time, like you said, the openings of we're opening Atlanta. We're going to have two locations in Denver, one in Tulsa, among many other that are still on the works, and I don't want to jinx. But for me, going from a standalone restaurant to be a culinary director and overseeing and training and making sure that the recipes can be executed 2 time zones away, and like if I was there, like that's a whole different aspect that I am in my path of learning. Like as a chef, you walk into the kitchen, turn the lights on, turn the equipment on, grab the prep list, and start cooking. Like, but what happens before turning the lights on?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm into now. Like I want to learn, how do we get to, let's turn the lights on day one. So that's my path. At the same time, just cooking with my friends. Just it's a good time to be alive.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the Top Chef family is, like you said, a tight knit community, and um, the people that are on the show really understand each other because you never go through that type of pressure. Nobody can understand unless you've been through it. So
Trauma bonded.
being what's that, trauma bonded? Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to put it. Good way to put it. So where can people find you on socials? Where can they follow you to keep up with all the happenings and know when things are going on so they can come eat your food?
Yeah, so on Instagram, I'm very active on Instagram. It's Chef Manny Barella. And that's where I post the stories about my travels and the dinners and everything that it has to do with cooking and where I'm at. That's where people can follow me more. I don't have Twitter or any of the other ones. Just I'm an elder millennial. I can only keep up with so many apps.
Elder millennial. Yeah, no, I hear you. I just got on TikTok just because, as content creators, we got to be on all of them, and I just don't
Yes.
understand it. I'm too old to get TikTok. I just don't. It's
Yeah,
just
you're like learning a whole different language.
I'm
Well, once you're there.
way out of my
Yeah, like
depth. Way out of my depth.
mhm,
Uh,
100%. But yeah, so that's where life is going now. Obviously, I mean, newly married. That's speaking about new adventures,
yeah,
so that's quite
yeah.
fun also.
Awesome. Good luck with everything that you got going on. Chef Manny, thank you so much for being on the pod. I appreciate your time and the stories and getting to know you a little bit better. And so happy that you took the time to be on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it, and I hope I get to see more of my fellow chef testants here in your podcast.
Oh, I'd love to have him. So, pass my name along. I'll love to have him come on the show. All
I'll surely do, brother.
right. Thanks.